You lied to us about uniting the party. I'm still a Labour Party member, and you've expelled and witch hunted in the most vicious way I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I've been a member of the Labour Party for a long, long time. You have absolutely said you had 10 pledges, you were going to carry on the Corbyn legacy, and ever since you've done nothing but distance yourself from the
Cabinet chaos. Starmer's desperate reshuffle as Britain burns. Good evening, and welcome back to UK Connors, where we dissect the machinations of Westminster with a precision they rarely deserve. If you're not already subscribed, do hit that button now, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you view this government's competence, or rather, spectacular lack thereof. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning in Downing Street, and Sir Keir Starmer is staring at polling numbers that would make even Liz Truss blush. The migrant crisis has reached fever pitch, crime statistics are painting a picture of societal collapse, and his carefully constructed cabinet is imploding faster than a poorly-built small boat in the English Channel. What does our Prime Minister do? He plays musical chairs with his ministers, hoping desperately that rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic might somehow prevent the inevitable iceberg collision. Let me paint you the full picture of this governmental catastrophe, because what happened this week isn't just politics. It's a masterclass in how to lose control of a nation while pretending everything's absolutely fine. Yvette Cooper, the former Home Secretary who once promised to be tough on immigration, has been unceremoniously shuffled off to Foreign Secretary. Now, before you think this might be a promotion, let me remind you of something rather crucial. Cooper was moved precisely because she couldn't handle what was happening on her own doorstep, let alone in Dover. The woman who was supposed to smash the gangs has instead watched over 50,000 migrants cross the channel on her watch. 50,000. That's not a crisis anymore. That's a complete systemic failure dressed up in diplomatic language. But here's where it gets deliciously ironic. Starmer's solution to this mess? Promote the person who presided over it to deal with international relations. One can only imagine the conversations Cooper will have with her French counterparts. Boyle, could you possibly stop more people from leaving your shores? We seem to have run out of luxury hotels to house them in. The sheer audacity would be amusing if it weren't so tragically incompetent. Enter Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, stepping into what can only be described as a poisoned chalice filled with radioactive waste. Previously Justice Secretary, Mahmood now inherits a department that's become synonymous with failure. The Home Office under Labour has managed the impossible, making Priti Patel look competent by comparison. Mahmood faces a situation where 32,000 migrants are currently residing in hotels across Britain, more than when Labour took power, despite their grand promises to solve the accommodation crisis. But wait, there's more to this cabinet circus. David Lammy, the former Foreign Secretary, has been demoted to Justice Secretary. Now, ostensibly this looks like a step down, and frankly, it is. But Starmer, ever the political magician, has thrown Lammy a consolation prize that's as hollow as it is transparent. Deputy Prime Minister. Let me be crystal clear about something. The Deputy Prime Minister role in British politics has about as much real power as the person who announces the next train at King's Cross Station. It's a title that sounds impressive at dinner parties but carries the political weight of a feather in a hurricane. This musical chair's approach to governance would be laughable if the consequences weren't so severe. While Starmer plays his administrative shell game, real people are dealing with real problems that his government seems constitutionally incapable of addressing. Take the recent case that sent shockwave through Essex and beyond. Hades Gerbislacy Kebetu, an Ethiopian asylum seeker housed in a hotel, was convicted of sexually assaulting both a woman and a 14-year-old girl shortly after arriving in Britain. Let that sink in for a moment. This individual crossed the channel, was placed in comfortable accommodation at taxpayer expense, and then committed serious sexual offenses against vulnerable members of our community, including a child. The response from the local community in Epping was swift and understandable. Protests erupted, and counter-demonstrations followed. 32 arrests, 21 charges, and a community torn apart by the consequences of policies that prioritize ideology over safety. Meanwhile, Essex police are still investigating the disorder that might never have occurred if proper vetting and accommodation procedures had been in place. If you're finding this content valuable, make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be tracking every development in this unfolding disaster. But the government's problems extend far beyond immigration policy. The very fabric of law and order appears to be unraveling under Labour's watch. While serious criminals roam free and shoplifting reaches epidemic proportions, with retailers reporting unprecedented losses, our police forces are apparently finding time to arrest comedians for social media posts. Graham Linehan, the 57-year-old comedian known for creating Father Ted in the IT Crowd, was arrested at Heathrow Airport by 5 armed police officers. His crime? Posting 3 messages on social media platform X regarding transgender issues. Now, regardless of your position on transgender rights, the sight of armed police arresting a comedian for expressing controversial opinions should chill every British citizen to the bone. Think about the resources involved here. 5 armed officers from the Metropolitan Police's Aviation Division were deployed to arrest a middle-aged comedian. Meanwhile, businesses across Britain are pleading for police intervention as organized gangs systematically loot their premises. The priorities here are so warped, so fundamentally backwards, that one wonders if we're witnessing the death of common sense in British policing. This isn't just about political correctness gone mad, though it certainly is that. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what police should be doing in a functioning democracy. When comedians are treated as greater threats than actual criminals, when words on social media receive more attention than physical crimes against persons and property, we cross a line from which recovery becomes increasingly difficult. The broader implications of this cabinet reshuffle reveal something deeply troubling about Starmer's leadership style. Rather than addressing the root causes of these crises, he's simply moving people around, hoping that fresh faces might distract from systemic failures. It's a political equivalent of rearranging furniture while your house burns down around you. Consider the optics for a moment. Angela Rayner's resignation, whether voluntary or otherwise, created a vacancy that triggered this entire reorganization. Rayner, once hailed as the authentic voice of the labor movement, found herself unable or unwilling to continue in her role. What does it say about a government when its most prominent working-class representative jumped ship barely a year into the term? The deal with France regarding migrant repatriation serves as a perfect microcosm of this government approach to serious issues. Heavily criticized for its ineffectiveness, the agreement allows Britain to deport only a tiny fraction of those who arrive illegally. It's a policy designed not to solve problems but to create the illusion of action while fundamentally changing nothing. This pattern repeats across every major challenge facing the nation. On crime, we see arrest statistics that prioritize politically convenient targets over actual public safety. On immigration, we witness policies that sound tough in press releases but crumble under the weight of reality. On economic issues, we observe a government that seems more concerned with virtue signaling than with the practical concerns of ordinary citizens struggling with the cost of living. The 32,000 hotel rooms currently occupied by asylum seekers represent more than just a number. They represent a complete failure of planning, foresight, and competence. These are resources that could be used by British citizens, by tourists contributing to our economy, by business travelers helping to build our post-Brexit future. Instead, they are indefinitely occupied by individuals whose status remains in bureaucratic limbo while taxpayers foot an ever-increasing bill. What makes this situation even more galling is the apparent indifference of the political class to public concern. When ordinary citizens raise legitimate questions about immigration numbers, accommodation costs, or community safety, they are often dismissed as xenophobic or worse. When they organize peaceful protests, as in Epping, they face arrest and prosecution. Meanwhile, the politicians responsible for creating these situations face no consequences beyond the occasional reshuffle. Starmer's response to these mounting crises reveals the mindset of a man who views politics as an academic exercise rather than a practical endeavor with real-world consequences. The cabinet reshuffle represents hope triumphing over experience, the belief that personnel changes can substitute for policy competence. But perhaps most concerning of all is what this says about Labour's understanding of their mandate. They were elected not to play games with ministerial appointments, but to govern effectively. British voters didn't choose them to conduct social experiments with community cohesion or to turn police officers into thought crime enforcers. They were chosen to address practical problems with practical solutions. The tragedy here isn't just political, it's social. Every day this government continues its current approach is another day that public trust in institutions erodes a little further. Every arrest of comedian while criminals roam free, every hotel filled with asylum seekers while homeless British citizens sleep rough, every cabinet reshuffle that changes nothing fundamental. These all contribute to a growing sense that the system itself is broken beyond repair. As we watch this slow-motion car crash unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear. This government isn't just failing to solve problems, it's actively making them worse. The cabinet reshuffle isn't a sign of decisive leadership. It's a desperate attempt to buy time while hoping that somehow, magically, things will improve on their own. They won't. And as the consequences of these failures compound, as communities fracture under the strain of policies that ignore reality, as public safety deteriorates while police chase thought crimes, we're witnessing not just governmental incompetence but the systematic destruction of social cohesion itself. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the current trajectory couldn't be more alarming. But don't worry, we'll be here to document every twist, every turn, every moment of this unfolding disaster. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because if there's one thing you can count on with this government, it's that there will always be more chaos to analyze. Until next time, this has been UK Connors, keeping you informed when your government prefers you weren't.